Good morning, everybody. We're going to get started in just a minute.
Lovely. Good morning and welcome to the IETF. Thank you. So today will be a program for new participants to help you understand the IETF. The IETF is a complex organization, and so we provide this training to help you understand the IETF from the beginning. I will be presenting this first session. I will explain who I am and more in a minute. And then you can see we have these other sessions throughout the day. At the end of the day, we have a special networking session for you to come and meet members of IETF leadership and talk to them more directly about any interest that you have. So, this is who I am. I am the Executive Director of the IETF. I have been doing this job since 2019. I've been working in the internet a long time. I started networking actually in the 1980s, and then working then in the 1990s on schools networking and then the domain name industry for many years. One of the things that you will see a bit in this presentation is some data from surveys. That's one of the things that I feel is particularly important, is using data for good decision making. And also, like many people in the IETF, I believe that we need a free and open internet for the future of the world. So, this is what you can expect from today. The IETF, as I said, is a complex organization. It is very broad in scope, it is large in activity, and there are detailed practices and rules. And So for new participants, this can be a problem to get involved. And so what we aim to do today with this program is teach you all the important things for you to become a productive and effective IETF participant, and to reduce the chances of you giving up. We also hope to build a cohort of new participants that can engage, support, and work together throughout their IETF journey. There will be people in the IETF who have known each other for 40 years and who work together on many projects. And if you get to know people through this program, then that will help you on your journey in the IETF. We also aim to give you a head start in meeting people, and including leadership and long-term participants, and to find out what the hot topics are. So before we go into the details, we're just going to start with Meetico, because this is such an important tool that we use throughout the meeting week. So Meetico is the IETF custom tool for remote participation. It's actually produced by a company, Meetico, who all of the workers there are IETF participants. It's a small company in Napoli in Italy, and they have been part of the IETF process for many years, and they have built some open source tools, and then this tool on top of it that we use for our meeting participation. So all sessions are linked off the data tracker agenda page, and there is this QR code in every working group session for you to scan. Now, Meetico is important because we use it to track who is in every session. You need it to be able to join a queue and to speak and participate. And it provides the chat facility for people to talk to each other, and it also allows you to get to the materials that you need. So here are some just very useful buttons for you to understand. The normal controls that you might expect on the top line, but our special controls are on the bottom line. We have our chat facility. We have our show of hands tool. So in some sessions, the chair may ask people to express a preference to understand the way forward. It is like a voting tool, but we do not call it voting. It is simply to help us understand the feeling of the room, and so we use that. And then we have the map, we have access to the materials, a participant list, all the things you might expect. So during this session for today, if you want to ask questions, we have 2 microphones there. You can come up and ask the questions. It is best if you use Meetico to join the queue to ask questions, because then we know about it. But because this is your first day, first session, if you forget, that's fine. You can still come up and ask a question. Okay, so about the IETF. The IETF is a standards development organization focused on internet technology. So that is the core purpose, is to create technical standards. It has no formal membership. Anyone can participate. People participate as individuals, not as representatives of their employer. Now, what that means is that just because you work for a particular employer does not give you any greater voice in the IETF than anybody else. The standards that are developed and the IETF is driven by market-based adoption of the standards. A real standard is one that people use. The IETF is not here to create technical standards that nobody uses. It is here to create technical standards that people find valuable and use on the internet. It is a bottom-up, community-controlled organization. So many of the things you will see today have been created by the community here, setting the rules for the way the IETF works. My role is to support the community, not to tell the community what to do. This is very different from other organizations. Most decisions that we have here are made by rough consensus, not by voting. So we want to get to the position where most people agree with the way forward. And there is no formal role for governments. There are government people here, but in the same way that with companies, they do not have any special authority, governments do not have any special authority in the IETF. And the best bit, you may have noticed, there are no sales booths outside, there are no marketing people. This is all largely engineers, researchers, policy people, people here to do the work, not people here to sell things to anybody, okay? So this is a very comfortable environment. So this is the mission of the IETF, to make the internet work better by producing high quality, relevant technical documents that influence the way people design, use, and manage the internet. This is a very low-key, very simple way of explaining the role of the IETF. So, a brief history of the IETF. The IETF was formed in 1986 by the then Internet Activities Board as an engineering activity. So this is engineering. The first IETF meeting was attended by 21 American federal government funded researchers in 1986. Outside, I just saw Licia Zhang, who was one of the original researchers that was there, and there will be another man, Bob Hinden, and Mike St. John's, I think, maybe. Oh, he's not here, no. Who are here, who were there from 1986, so they are around. The internet standards process, the procedures for developing internet standards were formally documented in 1992 and have then been revised. The IETF initially met 4 times a year, now it meets 3 times a year. So today, this week, we are in Shenzhen, then in July, we'll be in Vienna, and then in November, we'll be in San Francisco. Our meetings are always open to the public. Anybody can come. You do not need to be a member. Now, the RFC series is older than the IETF. RFC 1 was published in 1969 by Steve Crocker of UCLA to organize the working notes of the original research project. And we are now approaching RFC 10,000. And again, Steve Crocker still participates in the IETF. These people are still here participating, many of them. Interestingly, online data access in the form of FTP was defined in early RFCs, and so the RFC series became the first online publication series because you could access it by FTP in the 1970s. And for 28 years, the RFC series was managed and edited by the internet pioneer John Postel, who is one of the original inventors of the internet. So, I'm now going to tell you a little bit about the other people that come to the IETF. This is based, every year we run a survey of everybody in the IETF, and this is based on the survey from December 2024. We did our survey in December 2025, but we have not yet finished analysing the results, and so this is a little bit out of date, but still very relevant. So we have approximately 53,000 email addresses subscribed to our mailing lists. And we know that we have 7,000 active participants a year. That means people that come to IETF meetings, people that send emails to our mailing lists, people that are authors of documents, or people that contribute to GitHub repositories. So 7,000 of the 53,000 are active. And this is our breakdown of the 53,000. We see roughly 12% consider themselves active participants, which roughly aligns with the 7,000. We then have another 24% who are occasional participants. So they will read the mailing lists and sometimes send things. Then we have the people who read and the people who only occasionally monitor mailing lists at almost 50% of the email addresses. Now, that shows us that IETF standards and the IETF process is very important to people. If we have 25,000 people watching the IETF, but not participating in the IETF. And then 6% are new participants, like many of you here today. Then we have the breakdown by region. And as you can see, the two largest regions are Europe and North America, which are approximately 40% each, reflecting the historical origins of the IETF, and Asia is at 11%. Asia is growing as a proportion of the IETF, but currently still much lower than the other two large regions. And just a note, Oceania, which is Australia, New Zealand and the Pacific Islands, is overrepresented. So your first presenter today is me, I'm from New Zealand, and your second presenter is Bron, who is from Australia. So, we control the first bit of this presentation. So this is the breakdown by age. As you can see, the median is somewhere in the 45 to 54 age range. This is a very old set of participants compared to many other organisations. And that is because people, once they enjoy the IETF, they stay in the IETF. There are lots of people who, when they move from one company to another company, insist that IETF participation is part of their role. They try to keep IETF participation going while they change companies. Then we have the not so good story, which is our gender breakdown. So as you can see, approximately less than 10% of our participants are female. This is changing over time. We have many more women coming into the IETF in new participants, but still this is a very male-dominated community. That will change, and it is changing, but that is the truth at the moment. Then we look at how people are employed and where they are employed. The majority of people, as you can see, are employees of an organisation. Then we have business owners, people who run their own company, small, medium company, where the internet standards are important to them. And they will come here to understand those standards. Then we have independent contractors. We have lots of people who have been involved in the IETF for many years and have become an independent contractor doing work for lots of different companies because standards is such a specialist subject. Then you see we have still retired people. 9% of people are retired. They love the IETF, they still come. And then we have the students and others. When we look at the employment sector, we see that business is the largest sector, but academia and the research sector is the next largest and quite large. We also see civil society, not-for-profit, as a large part of this, people who come with policy objectives to work on the technology, much here, and then government at 12%. So we have a good spread of employment sectors. Now, we ask people, when did you first participate in the IETF? And we do this little chart. And as you can see, we have 25 people who answered who first participated in 1986. So we do have, long history of people involved in the IETF. So the structure of the IETF. The structure of the IETF is very simple. Okay? Easy to understand. So on the left, we have I will go through these groups. We have the IESG, then we have in purple, then we have in red the IAB, then we have the nominating committee. I'll explain that as well. Sorry, on the left is the IRSG, the Internet Research Steering Group. Then in yellow, in the middle, we have the IESG, and in the middle, the blue there is the IETF chair, the very special role within the IETF. Then next to that, we have the IETF Trust. Then we have the IETF LLC, which is what I work for, and my role is in there. And then on the right, we have the Internet Society. I will explain all of these, and there will be a short test afterwards about this diagram, okay, for everybody. So, the IESG. The IESG is the peak organization within the IETF. It has overall responsibility for the standards process and technical management of IETF activities. The IESG is made up of the area directors and some liaisons. The IESG is chaired by the IETF chair, and the IETF chair is the chair for the whole IETF community. That is Roman Delulu. He is unfortunately not able to come on site, but he will be presenting and working remotely throughout this week. Then we have the Internet Architecture Board. This provides long-term technical direction for the Internet architecture, and I will go into more details about them later, and responsible for external liaisons and some key leadership appointments. That is chaired by the IAB chair, Tommy Pawley. Then we have the Internet Research Steering Group, which manages the research part of the IETF, the Internet Research Task Force, which is focused on long-term research issues, and that is chaired by the IRTF chair, Dirk Kutscher. Dirk is here. Dirk actually works for a Hong Kong university based on mainland of China. So he is here. We have one person in the queue. Would you like to come up and ask your question?
Benjamin?
No? Okay, we'll carry on. So then we have the IETF Administration LLC, which is, so I'll go back to the diagram. So we have done the IESG, the yellow, the standards body that controls the internet, and that has the areas underneath it in yellow, has the working group chairs, and it has all the working groups down below. that part there. So the IESG there, the areas there, the working group chairs, and these are the working groups that do the work, mainly within the IESG, within the IETF. This here is the IAB, and we can see the programs and other things which I will explain later that the IAB runs. And so now we have the IETF LLC. The IETF LLC is the administrative organisation for the IETF. We are the legal representative of the IETF. We manage the finances. We run the meetings. We provide the tools that you use. That is the role of the LLC. Then we have the IETF Trust. The IETF Trust is an unusual organisation that holds the intellectual property of the IETF separately from the IETF to protect that intellectual property. We will talk more about intellectual property later to explain that. Then we have the Internet Society on the right. So this is the Global Internet Society. That is technically the parent organisation of the IETF. For many years, it did the role of the IETF LLC, and that provides much of the funding to the IETF for the IETF to operate. So, just to give you some faces for you to see later, this is the IESG, the Internet Engineering Steering Group. I think 5 of them are here, maybe, who you can meet this evening. And so now we move on to the IAB. The IAB has a new chair now, who is Dhruv Dodi in the top right there. Dhruv is here, and 7 of these members of the IAB are here, and you'll be able to meet those as well. So a little bit more about the IAB. The IAB has a long history. It was previously called the Internet Activities Board. Now it is called the Internet Architecture Board. It is a committee of the IETF and an advisory body of the Internet Society. So it is part of the IETF. But it has a very specific role within the IETF. First part of that is architectural oversight. So it looks to the future about the big things that are changing the internet, to understand those and help shape how those are then brought into the IETF as part of the standards process. And it does that through technical programs and through workshops. It also does liaison coordination. So the IAB is responsible for working with other standards bodies and with other external organizations in the internet space to provide the relationships with those. It does some appointments work as well. We have a complicated process for appointing people to positions of leadership to ensure that there is no opportunity to capture the IETF, and to ensure that the right people are chosen for the right role, and that if there is a problem, there is a mechanism for addressing that. And then the final role of the IAB is it is the final part of the normal appeal chain if somebody wishes to appeal a decision. So this is some recent work of the IAB. There are some things missing from this that I forgot to update. So the IAB runs programs. It did one on evolution, deployability and maintainability of the internet. It also just ran a workshop on age verification. an important one, and the AI control workshop is now a working group looking at AI preferences and things. There are some very important RFCs that have been produced by the IAB. RFC 8890, the internet is for end users, is an example of such an important document. So the IRTF. The IRTF is, we call it the sister organization to the IETF. It is both part of the IETF and parallel to the IETF. It is the research organization. There are these 16 research groups within the IRTF, many of whom are meeting at this meeting. It, as I said, is headed by the IRTF chair, Dirk Kutscher. He is appointed by the IRTF. Sorry, say that again. He is appointed by the IAB, okay? The IRTF operates similarly to the IETF, but with some key differences. Research groups do not have deliverables, they do not have milestones, they are genuine research groups which are expected to live for a long time and expected to find their work as they go along. Research groups, the IRTF, can only publish informational and experimental RFCs. They cannot publish technical standards. They do not follow consensus. So research groups may publish 2 RFCs that fundamentally disagree with each other. And the IRTF has an additional code of conduct covering academic integrity and research ethics and more. So here are some examples of recent RFCs published by the IRTF. RFC 9620, Guidelines for Human Rights, Protocol and Architecture Considerations. Some interesting ones down here, the Ristretto 255 and Decaf 448 groups, which is cryptography related. A lot of cryptography things take place there. So, but all of these are informational or experimental, so not technical standards. So now on to the administrative people. So we have the Secretariat. Michelle is a member of the Secretariat here. So they are the team that plans and manages IETF meetings. They are the people walking around wearing the green tops and wearing the tie-dye on Fridays. They are the people who organize the meeting and run the meeting. If you have a problem, you know, ask Michelle, okay? Then you have me as the Executive Director, who does nice talks like this, and we'll be walking around checking you're all happy. And we have IETF LLC staff. We have some of these staff are here, but the important thing, on the bottom 3, Kasara, Matthew and Rudy are here. They are 3 senior developers, and they will be on a desk outside here at some points during the week, and they can help you understand how the IETF tools work. And if you're interested in contributing code to IETF tools, they can explain to you how to do that and how that works. All IETF software is open source. It is all on GitHub. It is all available to anybody to use and to contribute to. We have some specialist technical services here as well. We have the RFC Production Center. They are the team of staff who edit and publish the RFCs. So when you have done your work within a working group on an internet draft and it is ready to be published, it goes to the professional editors who then work through it to make sure that it reads well, to make sure that everything is correct in it, all the references are correct, and then they publish it. And then we have IANA, the Internet Assigned Numbers Authority. As you know, many technical standards have protocol parameters, numbers that mean different things for different protocols, and we need registries of those. And IANA maintain, I think it is about 8,000 registries of protocols for the IETF. And they are here to help with that because so much work is generated for them through the IETF. One team which we want to tell you about because it's important is IETF Sisters. As I mentioned earlier, we have low participation from women compared to the IT industry or compared to the overall population. So we have this special team, Sisters. We have a breakfast and a lunch where women can come along to meet other women to network and understand and learn more about the IETF. So finally, about one slide about funding. The IETF is a not-for-profit. The IETF is very different from other standards development organisations. You cannot buy any form of influence in the IETF. In other standards organisations, you can pay money and you can have a seat on the board, or you can have an approval role, but in the IETF, money does not buy influence. And so we receive money entirely as donations or as sponsorship for the meeting and some fees for these meetings. So we receive approximately 7 million, 8 million this year from the Internet Society. Our fees for the meetings are about 2.5 million. And then our corporate sponsors, so we have CNNIC and a number of others. We have sponsoring this meeting, ZTE, we have parts of CCSA, we have Huawei. They are our corporate sponsors that help us operate these meetings. And as well as giving us money, they also give us free equipment and services. And then the donations we receive are about 300,000 a year. So that is how we operate. We make a small surplus each year, but we are not a profit organisation. There is nobody gets the profits from the end of the organisation. We are a not-for-profit. So, almost into the last part of this, because you come to the IETF and because you participate, there are some policies that you must follow, and we want to make sure that these are very clear to everybody. We put this slide up, the IETF notes well, at the beginning of every session. You will see this up on the screen. This is to remind you of the policies. This is the only session that does not begin with this slide. Every other session will begin with this slide to remind you these are the policies in place. And the first policy that you can see there is to behave in a professional manner and extend respect and courtesy to colleagues, to other people's here. That is the first one. We then talk about rights and intellectual property and other things. This is because we have companies here who are competing with each other in the marketplace. And we need to have rules about intellectual property to ensure that those companies can come here and talk openly. We need to do that to meet government regulation, and we need to do that to make sure that those companies are working fairly with each other when they are here. And then finally to note, the bottom one, the IETF is a very transparent organisation. We publish almost everything. So this video session now will be online forever. We will put it available to watch it. And so people were sometimes a bit surprised by that, but we make everything so public. So Starting off on the intellectual property side, because this is important for you to understand, when you come to an IETF meeting, anything that you write or say in an IETF session, in one of these sessions, or on one of our mailing lists, we consider that a contribution to the IETF. And we consider that you have given us a license to use that contribution for the creation of standards and for us to publish it and for us to do other things with it. So if you are participating, you are automatically sharing with the IETF, and we are able to use that information within the IETF. That is the way that standards organisations must work. Now, as I said, we are an exceptionally transparent organisation. So we publish the following things and almost never censor or redact these. We publish the names, organisations, and country code of all meeting participants. We publish audio, video, and transcripts of all sessions. Well, there are some private sessions, but everything else we do. We make available messages to most mailing lists, and our chat messages are available. And we also publish all communications that we receive, official legal communications, such as subpoenas or letters from lawyers. We do not sell your data at all, and we do keep certain things confidential related to application to roles, feedback, grants, financial information. Generally, we keep confidential. And this doesn't matter so much, but for the Europeans who wonder if this is GDPR compliant, yes, this is GDPR compliant. Really, we are experts on GDPR. So, patents, just to be clear about those as well, because that is, again, very important. The IETF works on the basis that people need to disclose patents that they are aware of that might have an impact on the standards process. Though these are the rules under which those patents must be disclosed, okay? We do not check the disclosures, and so if you think a disclosure or a patent is false, you have to speak with your own legal department and do that. But what we're after here is transparency, okay? So that people tell us about patents so that we know that they exist, and so that participants, when they are developing the technology, can make an informed decision about whether or not they wish to participate, and that working groups can make an informed decision about whether or not they wish to move forward with a particular technology based on, patents there. So this is what an IPR disclosure looks like. We have a on Data Tracker, our main website, which Bron will go through. We ask people to declare patents. So this is important to us. And this is the simple form that allows people to disclose how patents work for us. Right. So do we have any questions at all? You can invent a question. If you want to know where the bathrooms are, please come and ask. Any questions at all?
And we'll take this as an opportunity that if you haven't yet scanned that QR code that Jay mentioned before, we have them on the microphone there. There's also some boards in the back of the room. If you could make sure you scan that, let us know that you're here.
Okay, we never have questions normally, except, people who are stuck with the power or something, so that's fine. So just to remind you, we have the sessions today, and I hope to see you at the quick connections for new participants today and at the welcome reception as well later today. Okay, thank you all very much.
Our next session will be starting in about 15 minutes. If you do want to test your Meet Echo to join the queue, and you can take yourself out of the queue just to make sure it's working, this is a great opportunity to do that as well.
10:30 start. Say to them, it's 10:30 start.
At 10:30 is the next start time for session 2. There are some beverages just outside the room for you all, so please help yourself. And I'm sure the steering committee will pay for it. We're going to get started in about 1 minute.
All right. Let's see if we can raise this up to human height. Yep, cool. It works. It's a miracle. Have you kept track of how many people came back and how many ran away? Yeah.
All right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started with session 2. I'd like to introduce your speaker here. It's Braun. And yeah, if you haven't already, please make sure that you scan that QR code so that you're in the Meet Echo room. You'll hear that reminder a lot this week.
All right, thank you, Michelle. I think I'm required to say g'day as an Australian, even though I live in the United States now. Welcome to the second session of your introduction. This is a long day, I'm sorry. Hopefully I will say interesting enough things that you'll feel that you're getting value out of this. So this is the second session of a large section of things. I'm going to be talking about mailing lists, how to use the data tracker, and a bit more about IETF meetings like this. I'll give you the spoiler up front. We come here in person to build the relationships that let us get the work done for the rest of the year. So most of the work at the IETF happens. Oh yeah, let's talk about me. This slide is now slightly out of date. I no longer write C in Perl. I talk to an AI that writes C in Perl and then I read it. So some of the things I will be mentioning today are the fact that the world is changing pretty fast and telling you where maybe I think AI is a good thing to use and isn't, but let's not talk about that the whole time. I've been doing this email for over 20 years. I've been coming to the IETF for nearly 10 years. When I saw that graph of the years people have started at the IETF, I was in one of the least years. There were not many of us started in 2017, but there's a few. All right. The note well. This will come up in every single session. You don't need to read it every time because it doesn't change, but you do need to read and understand this. As Jay said, anything you do here is a contribution to the IETF. Anything you stand up at a microphone and say might get used to build the future of the internet. That's a good thing. But do understand what this means. All right, have you read it? Quick show of hands. Hey, nice. This is another thing I'll be talking about. Reading things at the IETF is a superpower. Most people won't. So if you show up to a meeting and you have actually read the documents, you're ahead of most of the people there. All right, email. Jay gets a lot of information about what happens at the IETF and showed you a pile of information. I think this is the only statistics I have for you. Mailing lists are by far the most popular way for people to communicate at the IETF. Looking at all these things that people say how they like to be involved, mailing lists are where it's at. Everything that goes to the mailing list, it's a contribution, just like everything you say here. All decisions are finalized on the mailing lists. So you can join any one of these mailing lists and you have as much authority there as everyone else. Thanks, Barry, for joining me in the hat brigade. You have to take it off later in this, it's very important. All right, there are a lot of mailing lists. I would recommend joining some of the ones on here, or at least looking at them. And any area you're interested in the work, you can go and you can read all the discussions that have happened over the last 50 years about that topic. So you can understand what's been looked at already, what people thought about it, and come to the meetings prepared. It's definitely worth joining the mailing lists. It's worth understanding how your email program works to allow you to filter them, so you don't have to read everything in real time. But these are the place where a lot of the work happens. All right, this is just a detail. You can read this slide later. It's Mailman 3. It's a fairly standard way that mailing lists work. The one interesting thing is once you subscribe to one mailing list, that means you have agreed to the note well, the thing that you saw up there, the thing that you said you would obey by coming to this meeting. And from there, you can send to any of the mailing lists once you've joined one of them. And in highlight down there, agreements we make in this room or in the other rooms here during the week are not final. The final decision is always made on the mailing list. So you don't have to be here in person to contribute and to have an equal voice. So why are we here in person? We're here in person to build the relationships, to build the trust, to meet people, so that when you are this random person on the email list, the other person thinks, here's someone who understands things. I know this person. They're sensible. They're not an idiot. They might have something worthwhile to say. That makes a big difference, yeah? Because there's a lot of people in the world and you have no clue whether they understand what they're saying. All you have is what they've written in text. People come across as jerks in text. You come across worse than you do in person. The other people come across worse than they do in person. And so building this relationship here will mean that what you do on the emailing list will get you, as Jay said, paying money won't get you listened to, but showing other people that you understand, that you know what you're talking about, that you make sensible technical trade-offs, that will get you listened to. So that's the kind of bribe that actually works. And I will certainly take those bribes in my working groups. All right, this is what the mailing list looks like on the web. You can go through, you can see all the messages, you can search, you can sort, you can filter. Go have a play with it. Log into the data tracker. That's another thing I'll say a lot today. Log into the data tracker, poke around. You mostly can't break things. If you do break things, that's a problem for the tools team and they will fix it, and it will be their fault, so it's fine. Poke around, look at things, try it out, figure out how it all works. This slide tells you how to write email. I'm sure you all know how to write email. The one thing I'm going to add to this is don't use AI to write a long email. You're wasting everybody's time. Write your own words, keep it short, keep it to the point. Try to do one topic per email. If you do lots of different topics in the same email, it's more likely people will miss one of them. And think about the fact that every email you send is going to be read by hundreds, possibly thousands of people. Respect their time and they will respect you more. All right, and then some little details about what's nice, but people often top post and do rich text formatting and it works just fine. So don't think these are hard and fast rules. Work out what works in the working group you're in. All right, the data tracker. You've all been to this site already because this was the login site that got you to scan your QR code. And you're all logged into Meet Echo, right? Of course you are. Yes. All right. Again, look around. There's details on all the people. There's information about every single working group. It's all linked to from the agenda. And I think I've got a slide on that later that shows you the agenda for this week and how to find what to get to. There are 8 or 9 parallel tracks every single day. There is far too much to get to every single session in person. It's all recorded. You could spend the next 3 weeks catching up on everything that happened at the IETF. I recommend anything you're interested in, go to the meeting, meet the people, see what's being discussed in the room. Use your time here to meet people because that's what it's all about. All right. When you log into the data tracker, it looks like this. Across the top, there's some menu items. It's a standard website. Right in the middle there, search. You can search for any keywords, authors' names, technologies in the data tracker, and it will show you current drafts that match that. It's a way to find things. I really only use that when I actually know already which document I'm looking for. And I tend to normally go through the working group to see the list of what they're discussing, and you can find that from the agenda. But it's there. Again, play around. You probably won't break it. If you do, it's not your fault. So see what you can find there. See what interests you. There's even a report a bug link. Authentication, everything logs in through Data Tracker now, except the mailing lists, which still have their own, sometime late in 2025 or early 2026, it says. So who knows? It might happen this week. But for now, you still need to log into Mailman with a separate password, but everything else is done through the Data Tracker login. So that one password gets you into all of the IETF resources, including the notes system that we take notes during the meetings, the wikis, which I'll talk about in a second, and obviously the registration that got you into this meeting. All right, meetings. You're here at an IETF meeting. There are 3 of them per year, and as Jay said, we'll be in Vienna, and we'll be in San Francisco later this year. There are so many sessions happening, and go to them. A session, the rooms are different sizes. This is one of the kind of a medium-sized room. I think there are bigger and smaller rooms than this, but the arrangement's the same. There are microphones, you can speak locally. There's the remote system where people will connect in. I think you'll see someone join later today, so you'll get to see what that looks like as well. And remote and local participants have the same rights. You enter the queue using your phone, using your laptop, or maybe asking the person up front nicely if all of your technology is broken. But you are in the queue with the remote people, and it will alternate between them. So standing at the microphone no longer gets you special rights. You need to enter through the system. All right, everything, as you can see, the AI is telling you what I said down the side there. This is also recorded. All the sessions are recorded. You can find them online later, and people will be taking notes. And everything pretty much works like this. It's a really good system. This is one of the most remote-friendly conferences I've been to. All right, hats. Ready, Barry? Are optional. When you're here, you are representing yourself. You might be also representing, yeah, sure. You might also be representing a company. Obviously, I represent my company. My company's interests are part of what I'm doing, and I state who I work for so that people understand that when they hear my contributions. But I don't get special rights due to it. You don't get special rights due to the company you work for. You are one person with a say, same as everybody else. It is worth reading and understanding how rough consensus works at the IETF and asking people if you're not sure, because what it comes down to is good, clear specifications and running code. So it has to be technically understandable, it has to work with the rest of the internet, and you need to persuade the other people here that you know what you're talking about, that your thing will work. And so the rough consensus is everybody gets heard, everybody's objections get heard. It doesn't necessarily mean that you can block work from going forward just because you personally hate it if you can't articulate a good technical reason why it won't work. But if you do have a good technical reason, you will be listened to, and people will take that into account. And that process is slow. I don't know if there's slides later about how long it takes a document from idea to final delivery to take at the IETF, but it's about 4 years, give or take. Yeah, there you go. Next session, you'll hear all about that. It takes a while for documents to get through this process, but they come out better. And the fact that you're all here, the fact that the IETF has been around for 50 years, the fact the internet is built on that is a testament to this process working. So you're in the right place to build the future of the internet, and your contributions will last a long time. It's slow, but it's the foundations that everything else is built on. All right. And then some other details there, which are definitely worth reading. I won't read them out to you. Most of you have the new participant thing on your badge. You'll also see that people have colored dots. I have the blue dot, which says working group chair, and thankfully no other responsibilities other than this session. But you can see from there, other important thing, this is white. This means I don't mind having my photograph taken. If you're wearing a red lanyard, please do not photograph people with a red lanyard. They would prefer at least a little bit of privacy. There is a professional photographer taking photos around here as well, and they will be obeying these as well. All right, meeting technology. The data tracker has an agenda. This page lists all the sessions, where they are. There are also a bunch of icons down the side, and they link to different things about the meeting. So they'll give you the materials, telling you the agenda, any slides that have been proposed, you can download and see somewhat in advance. They might come through pretty close to the meeting. You can also connect to the tool. If you didn't scan the QR code from every single agenda item, you can connect to the same tool from your phone or from your larger device, and you can join the meeting through there. You can even go sit in your room and join multiple meetings in different tabs in your browser and listen to all the sound streams at once. It's very painful, don't do it. But you can see all the things that are happening on this page. I spend a lot of time on this page during the week. You probably will as well. Meeting network. On the back of your badge, there's a password. If you haven't got that working yet, do try and log into that so that when you need it, you know that it works. And that will connect you to the IETF 125 network or IETF 125 hotel, which works throughout the hotel. The IETF 125 works inside the meeting rooms themselves. Zulip chat. So there's a chat system built into the data tracker, sort of built into the Meet Echo, that shows you some kind of side text conversation that's happening alongside the meeting itself. That is also available between the meetings, and you can join any one of the working groups and you can see the chat that's happening during the meeting and also in between meetings occasionally. It's worth having a look at that, setting that up. You can install it on all your devices. It's available as an app. And that echoes what's happening inside the meeting. So you can be in there or you can be logged into the meeting and it will be the same chat. There's a wiki. It has a bunch of information about every single one of the meetings. This slide is the previous one, but there is information about the venue, about the area as well. It's worth having a look at that. You can propose edits to it, and the hackathon also has its own, you'll see more about that later, has its own wiki as well. All right, I think we're getting close to the end here. This tool, Meet Echo, you'll be spending maybe just logging in through the QR code, but if you're presenting in any sessions, then you'll be using this to get in and upload your slides. Oh, no, you upload slides through the data tracker. They will appear in here. You can also see who is speaking, who's got questions. I see someone has popped up their hand now. Would you like to hop up to a microphone? All right, Grace, welcome.
Thanks. I'm a little bit confused about the Zulip chat versus the Meet You chat. So like, is all the Meet You chat in Zulip?
Yes.
And then it just has more persistence?
Yes.
So this chat, when you close...
This chat will, when the meeting closes, you won't be able to use that URL to get there anymore, but the persistent chat will be there with everything that happened in the
Okay.
session.
And then you can also continue to chat between
Yes.
meetings.
Yeah, you can continue to
Okay.
chat in the session itself, or there's a general chat for each working group as well.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Thanks for the question. All right, and that is the end of my bit. So if you do have any questions, please do pop up, or come and find me throughout the week. I have a hat, makes it very easy to see. Don't confuse me with Barry.
Braun is the taller chap with the hat and the funny accent.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, you can, please.
Again, we're going to be hanging out in this room all day for all of these sessions. And in between the sessions, it's a great opportunity if you want to put yourself in the queue, test out your Meet Echo. We'd like to remind you, if you do come to the microphone, just please state your name nice and clearly, so perhaps somebody is doing something else in their laptop and they can hear who's actually at the microphone. And yeah, if you're having any troubles, please come on up in between the sessions. We'll try to help you. The next session, we have session 3, which talks about the standards development process. It's quite a heavy session, and it's a lot of the meat of the IETF and how the documentation gets developed from an idea all the way to a published RFC. So you have a little time for a break now. Again, test out your equipment, and we will see you back here shortly, about 15 minutes from now. I'm going to double check and I'll announce that in just a moment. So thank you.
Thanks.
So actually, we have scheduled a little bit longer of a bio break right now from 11 to 11:15. The session 3 will be starting at 11:15. So you have some proper time right now to use the facilities, get something to drink, catch up on email, close your eyes for a couple minutes and get a little nap in. So we'll see you back here at 11:15.
Could pop over to Disney World or something. Maybe.
High-speed train. And please, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to come up and ask. We're here to help you.
Test. Ça marche.
Oh.
Is Zhudong Wang in the room? Zhudong Wang? Having problems with your laptop? No? Okay, thank you. We're going to be getting started in about 1 minute.
But that's okay. Tell me when I disappear. Oh, good. All right. So maybe I can walk around. All right, I'll try to stay. And I can't back up. Mm-hmm. I see that. I don't want, maybe I'll just do it. Yeah, I think this works. Am I being transcribed here?
That actually kind of is a little frightening. I just noticed.
All right, are we ready to start? To respect the time of the people who are prompt.
Okay, we are going to get started. Just as a reminder, if you haven't already, please scan the QR code that you see on the screen. There are some QR codes on the microphone in the middle, and there's also some posters in the back of the room that you can scan the QR code. Let us know that you're attending this session. Again, this is session 3 of the new participant program. We're going to be talking about standards development. And I'm going to pass it off to Barry.
Yeah, hi, I'm Barry Lieba. I want to be the only person in the room who is not scanned that code, so everybody be sure you scan the code. The one on the screen here will disappear soon, but there are other places to do it. Ron scared you with saying that it takes 4 years to have a standard published, so you know, I'm going to go through the process that makes that happen. And I'll say that we've had some that took 4 months, and we've had some that took 12 years. So, you know, 4 years is probably a good middle ground, but they can happen faster, and they do. And it's all up to you. So let's proceed. You don't need to see that one. You definitely don't need to see this one. This is who I am. I will note, though, that when you look at the slides, I have all these roles that I have now and have had in the past, and none of them applies here. I'm talking for myself and telling you my thoughts and the thoughts on the slides. Note the note well. You've agreed to this about 30 times already, and the week has only just begun. Okay. The way the IETF works is in working groups, and the working groups are split into technical areas. We have here a list of the 6 technical areas, plus the general area that has process-related things going on. I highly recommend you don't spend much time on the process stuff until you really get deep into the weeds of the IETF. So you have 7 technical areas ranging from the application layer, which is where I live, to the routing and internet layers, which is where a lot of my colleagues live, and then a couple of things like operations and security that span the different layers and address special things. Security gets its little fingers into everything. And never mind how many working groups there are or what they're called, like on this slide, there are places you can look this up. And on the looking it up, I have to learn how to say data tracker, because that's not how I would normally pronounce it, but I love the way Bron says it, so I'm working on that. The data tracker, thanks, mate, is when I started in the IETF, we didn't have a data tracker. Braun doesn't know from an IETF that doesn't have it. It changed our lives because the data tracker keeps track of everything that goes on in the IETF system. It has all the information about the working groups, all the information about the documents, all the information about everything that's happening. And when you look at this, what you see here is the data tracker entry for a working group, for the ACE working group. And it tells you about the structure of the working group. But up at the top where it says adopted IDs and current status, there's this line there of documents, meetings, history, etc. You can click on the documents link and get this list of documents that that working group is working on. And it's divided into several sections. There's the ones that are actively being worked on right now, the active internet drafts. There's then a section of the RFCs that have already been published by that working group. And then way at the bottom, there's a list of other documents that have not yet been adopted by the working group, but they are related to this working group. People who are working in that working group have proposed them, and they may eventually become working group products. So that gives you a good list of what to read. When you come to an IETF meeting, you will need to know what of those, let me back up again, what of those drafts they're going to be discussing. And if you have brought yourself up to speed on them and understand what the issues are that are going to be discussed, you'll have a better time following what's going on in the meetings. My first IETF meeting was in 1998, and I went to Los Angeles not knowing what I was doing and found that the working group I went to work on was great, but all the other working groups I went to, I had no idea what was happening. My second meeting I'd prepared better for. So, word to the wise. So, the documents data tracker page tells you everything about that document, what its status is, how far along in the process it has gone, and I will talk a lot more about that process, and then has the text of the document. So, here's that process. Barry, don't back up. Just for those of you who don't know, I'm about 8 centimeters from the edge of the stage here. So, everything we do in these in working group documents has to represent rough consensus of where the working group is on that document. What we think, as Braun put it, what's the working code that's going into this, what's going to make this protocol work correctly. And different people will have different views of that. There's no one right answer. So sometimes everybody can agree on something, and that's fabulous, and that's always what we aim for. Lacking that, we go for what we call rough consensus, which means that we have considered the options. We've considered the objections to the path that's written in the document now, and either changed the document to reflect a new rough consensus, or explained why the path we're on is the right one and moved on ahead. A good participant strongly supports their own views of what the right path is, but graciously accepts that they're on the rough side of the consensus when that happens, and allows the document to represent the rough consensus of most of the people and most of the technological statements that are being made. So we don't vote. It's not that I've mentioned objections, and that's the point of this, is that you can raise an objection that says this will not work. It's broken. And here's why. Here's the technical reason why. And that one objection can change the rough consensus because you've pointed out a fatal flaw. There's also I think this is a better way to do it. And that's a valid objection also, but it has a different strength. It's a lesser strength of argument, but none of it is voting. None of it is saying, okay, 10 people want it this way and 8 people want it that way, so the 10 win. It doesn't work that way. Everybody represents themselves with that. Don't try to get 15 of your favorite colleagues to come in and support your view. The working group will very quickly see through that, and they don't like it. The idea is give us your best input and let that stand on its own strength. So, rough consensus, as this says, is achieved when all issues are addressed. That doesn't necessarily mean that we change the document to accommodate them, but they have been addressed, they've been discussed, the technical balance has been decided. There's this thing called humming. We used to do that a lot more than we do now, particularly with Meet Echo and the increased use of remote participation. The humming doesn't work the way it used to. We actually used to say, well, here, those of you who are women in the room, hum now. Just go, hmm. Those of you who are men in the room, hum now. And so I hear the men hum is louder than the women hum, so there are more men than women in the room is how I interpret that. That's what we used to do. And that, we still occasionally do it, but it's a way to get the discussion started. Choice 1, choice 2, choice 3, hum for those 3 choices. Choice 2 got the loudest hum. Let's start the discussion there and see where we go. But it's definitely not a vote. It's not the end of the discussion. It's just the beginning. Consensus is where we're headed. So what we have an RFC. It's referenced on the bottom here, written by my good friend Pete Resnick, RFC 7282, that talks all about this process. The idea here is that 5 people against something, or even 1 person against something, can not be rough consensus because that 1 person has raised a significant issue that hasn't been addressed. Okay, so a typical, and this isn't universal, this is a typical process flow. Typically, an individual who has an idea writes it up as an internet draft and submits it to the working group for consideration. Ideally, that 1 person has talked with other people beforehand. You can just write up a draft and dump it into the system, but more commonly and more effectively, you discuss this with other people who are doing related work, and they inform what you write in that, and they will support your work once you do present it to the working group. So it starts off as the individual phase, an individual internet draft. The working group will discuss that for a bit, and at some point they might decide to adopt your document as a working group product. And at that point, you resubmit it with the name of the working group as part of it, part of the name of the document, and it becomes a working group document. And the working group may discuss that for a month or a year or 4 years or however long it takes to develop it to the point of rough consensus and where they think it's solving the problem it's intended to solve. You have a lot to do with this. We've done a little analyzing of where the delays in the process happened, and there are delays in every phase, but the main thing is the author of the document is not always prompt about updating the document and reflecting the changes that the working group has proposed. So it's on you as the author of the document, the editor of the document, to keep this going, to keep updating it and reflecting what the current working group discussion is saying. And that will lessen the time it takes to get through this process. At some point, the working group chairs will decide that it looks like we're about done. Let's call a working group last call on this. And again, that doesn't have to happen, but it generally does. That the working group is put on notice that we're ready to publish this. Give it a last read, give it your last comments on it before we send it to the IESG to request publication. So after that, the area director responsible for your working group is given the document, the chairs do a publication request. And that area director reads it over, and probably the area director has comments, and there's some iteration with the working group going back and forth, making changes, making the area director happy with the content of it and the fact that it has rough consensus of the working group. So here's a summary here. The individual had an idea, individual internet draft, the working group and the individuals discuss it. Next step, the working group does a call for adoption on this. Is this document in a state where the working group is ready to continue with that as its own product? It becomes adopted. Now again, when the working group adopts it, it's not done. It's not, the working group isn't deciding that it's ready. They're deciding that it's in a suitable state for them to proceed with it. And so it goes through the working group discussion, it gets working group rough consensus, goes to working group last call, submitted to the area director to the IESG. That's the process. I'm going to pause here and ask if anybody has a question about the life of a document within the working group. And all I see is the code wobbling back and forth. There must be some air currents going on there. All right. I'll make another point here. There's a thing called a document shepherd. As I said, a lot of the delays that go into this system have to do with the authors not being as responsive as they ought to be. Once it gets up to the next stage, there are a lot more cogs going on. There's various area directors making comments. There's IANA making comments. There's a lot of pieces. And somebody needs to make sure that this all gets, these cats all get herded and that the delays don't continue. So that's where the shepherd comes in. The document shepherd's job is to write up a summary of the life of this document and give it to the area director for support, and then follow it along the way and make sure that if somebody has raised an issue, somebody responds to that. It doesn't just sit there and things move forward. Also, there are things called directorates, which are groups of experts in certain sub-areas of things that are asked to review this. Make sure that if there's a Yang, I never remember whether it's model or module, that there's a Yang thing, make sure it's right. If there's XML in there, make sure the XML is right. If there are issues with IoT concerns or security concerns, make sure that they got them right. So that's the directorate reviews part of this, the last bullet. And I have a person in the queue. Please ask your question. Hat man.
Yeah, hi Barry.
Not pants man.
Steady. I had a question about how you choose which working group to take your work to, because we've jumped straight to the working group adoption, but how do you decide which working group should adopt your work?
That's something we should tweak on these slides. Michelle, please take note. Yes, the way at the beginning of the process, I said that you take your idea to a working group. What working group do you take it to? Well, presumably you have started looking at, Bron said, subscribe to some mailing lists, read what's going on. The best participants, the best new participants do a lot of reading and looking and listening before they speak. So you've got some idea of what working groups you're interested in. If you have any questions about what working group is suitable for this work, there are two ways to deal with that. One is to talk to relevant area directors and other working group chairs and that sort of thing. And another is to take it to the burgeoning number of dispatch working groups that exist in the IETF now, whose job it is to figure out where this belongs.
Yeah, the other thing that should have been in my presentation that I realized here is that each working group has a charter which describes what it is supposed to work on and also what it doesn't work on. You can go and read all the charters for all the working groups or find things in your area and see, is the thing I want to do in charter for this working group? And I think that's a good way to choose.
Yeah, that's true. I kind of think of that as pounding your toe with a hammer. But the charters can be pretty dense and hard to figure out. As I said, likely if you've been watching, reading, listening for a while, you have some sense of where you want to go. And there's always advice from others and dispatch working groups, dispatch, sec dispatch, gen dispatch, that kind of thing, or the area working groups like the transport area working group and things like that. Yes.
Yes, I have a question regarding to the rough assessment. I think I want to learn more about how the chair decides the rough assessment. For example, I can assume a scenario for a certain discussion or certain question. Different people may have different idea. They are either A or B. In this kind of situation, is the chair's responsibility to make decision? We will go to A or B, or chair just to listen to people's discussion, and then I just want to learn more about the process here.
So it's hard to hear the speakers up here because they're aimed out at you. So I think you're asking how the working group chair decides where the consensus has gone and whether we have consensus.
Yes.
Okay. That's why we get paid so much as chairs. Nothing. It's experience and following the discussion and seeing how it's gone. The chair will say, we've had a discussion going on in a room for 30 minutes or on the working group for a couple of weeks or whatever. And the chair can say, all right, it looks to me like most people think that choice 2 is the right answer. Is that what we all agree on? And then let's see if the discussion supports that continuing. So they do it by observing the discussion and making their analysis of where the discussion has gone. They do it by asking further questions and seeing how the answers to those go. And ultimately, they will say, I see that this is the rough consensus we have. If anybody objects to that, speak up now. And either then you get no objections, or you get objections that have already come up and been addressed, or you get somebody raising a new objection, and then you continue the discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And then Wenhao are you Wenhao?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, good. So thank you for the questions. Now, that was a particularly important question for me to answer, so thank you for asking it. All right, so we've got the document shepherd, the director reviews. Now we have the AD review. The area director responsible for your working group reviews the document. As I said, iterates on that. We get a final result. And then the AD says, okay, I'm happy with it. I see that the working group still has rough consensus on it. It's time to put it out to the general IETF community for last call. And that's done by posting a message to the last call mailing list, which is a huge mailing list that gets every last call in the IETF. The full community now has an opportunity to look at this. All the people who have not been following that working group yet, or ever, or whatever, will be informed about this document and given a chance to comment. Sometimes there's nothing. Sometimes there are no last call comments. Sometimes there's a lot. Sometimes the document has to go back to the working group because the last call raised issues that need to be addressed by the working group. So here's where the document shepherd needs to follow what's going on and help the chairs keep track of what's happening during the last call and make sure that that goes smoothly and that the issues get addressed. That's also when any directorates that have not already been asked to do earlier reviews are asked to do reviews now. is we generally try to get all of the directorates and review teams to participate in the last call. Not always successful, but we give it a try. Anybody can make comments at this point, and many do. So when that goes back and forth, and eventually, typically a working group, a last call from a working group document takes 2 weeks. When that's done and the issues raised by it have been addressed in the document, it goes to the IESG as a whole. It's put on what's called the telechat. It's there every 2 weeks. The IESG meets to discuss documents. And this document will now be read by all, however many, 15 area directors we have right now, and they will all ballot on it. Now, this sounds like a vote, right? We specifically call it a ballot, not a vote. And the no is not an answer that's acceptable on there. The ballot can say yes or no objection. Yes means I support this and would be one to fight for it. And there has to be at least one yes ballot. Usually the sponsoring area director is the one who gives it a yes ballot. We've had some documents that had 6 yes ballots. That means it was a very popular document that was considered important, and lots of area directors were willing to fight for it. But most of the time, everyone else gives it a no objection ballot. The other common ballot is discuss. And that doesn't necessarily mean this is a disaster. Some people think that's what it means. It means I have something I want to discuss with the authors and the working group before I ballot no objection. That discussion has to happen. If there are any open discuss ballots that have not been addressed, the document won't move forward. So be sure that any non-discussed comments that area directors make should also be strongly considered, but they don't have to be addressed. The ones that have to be addressed are the discusses. So you keep track of that. The document shepherd makes sure the discussion moves ahead. When all the discusses are cleared off and all that's left are yeses and no objections, it's ready, the document is ready to move on. And a note comes out, it's put in a state called an announcement to be sent, and then announcement sent, and an announcement goes to the community, this document is done. It goes into the RFC editor queue. Now that process can take anywhere from a couple of weeks to a couple of months to a long time if there are document dependencies. Often documents make reference to each other. And all of the documents in a set that make references to each other have to be ready for publication in order for the RFC editor to proceed with them. So here we've added to the process flow. We've added the IESG portion to the process flow. Don't need to go further on that because we've already gone through it all. Are there any questions about the IESG process? Now, the interesting thing about the IESG process is you're going to be getting people, if you're submitting a document in the routing area, you're going to be getting people from the security area, you're going to be getting people from the applications area, you're going to be getting people from the operations and management area, all reviewing this and giving their own take on what this routing document is doing. Sometimes the discusses come simply because they are not experts in the area of this document and they're asking questions. Sometimes they come from experience they've had that says, the last time I saw this, it was a problem. So don't get frustrated. It's very easy to get frustrated. A lot of people do. Don't be that man. Don't be that woman. Okay. Not all working groups work the same way. There are different tools that can be used for all of this. And it used to be that everything was done on the mailing list, with discussions in face-to-face meetings boiling down to, let's go back and put it on the mailing list again. But now we have other tools. We have GitHub, And a lot of working groups are using GitHub, which is a nice way of collaborating on the content of the document, having a place to do issue tracking and all of that sort of thing. So your working group might or might not use that. We have a lot more interim meetings, mostly online, than we used to have. So in between face-to-face meetings, we'll have MeetEcho calls, or sometimes using other tools. Some groups still use Zoom for that. MeetEcho has since been enhanced to do really well with the interim meetings. And all the working groups that I participate in that use interim meetings use that. So different tools, different roles. I talked about working group chairs, I talked about document shepherd, but there's also some working groups have a working group secretary that can help out the chairs by keeping track of things and being an alternate person who can manage an interim call if the chairs are not available, that kind of stuff. And sometimes a secretary position is used to prepare someone to be a new chair. And have they already talked about how chairs get appointed? Okay, so I don't know if this is, will it be later?
A little bit covered in the last session.
All right, well, maybe I'll introduce it now, that the working group chairs are appointed by the area director responsible for the working group. And they can be changed by the area director responsible for the working group. There's no term limit for chairs. Some people have chaired the same working group for 20 years. Some area directors prefer to swap the chairs out periodically and just get new ideas and new thoughts in. There's nothing wrong with being replaced as a chair. There's nothing wrong with staying in as a chair for a long time. It's all up to you as a chair and the area director responsible for it. But one thing that when I was an area director that I liked to do was to try to find an experienced chair and a new chair to be co-chairs for the working group. We normally have at least 2 chairs for each working group because somebody gets busy, somebody has a conflict of interest, somebody needs backup, and it's always a good idea to have multiple chairs so one can back the other up. And with the new chair, old chair idea, it lets the experienced chair help to teach the newer chair how the data tracker works and what the different processes and roles are. So, also the chairs assign document editors. Most of the time, if you are the one presenting an idea to the working group and you wrote the individual draft that comes in, most of the time you remain the author editor of the document when it becomes a working group product, but not necessarily. And I've had working groups that I've chaired where I thought that for various reasons, a neutral editor should be appointed to be the editor for that document rather than having it be the original authors. So it's up to the working group chairs what will work best for this working group and this particular document. And design teams, the working group will often have an issue that needs to be resolved that's perhaps been discussed for a while and it hasn't been resolved yet. And the working group chairs will say, you 3 go off and form what we call a design team. Have a couple of conference calls, drink some beer, do whatever it is you want to do, and discuss this, and come back to the working group with your answer to what the best path is. It's still the working group's decision. The design team doesn't decide anything. The design team just comes up with something that they can present back to the working group as their view of the right answer. The working group still decides. All right, here's interim meetings. Again, the data tracker is your friend. All that stuff on the right that says meeting resources are things you can click on that I never remember what any of those icons mean, and you won't either. Hover over them and they'll tell you. but they get you to things like the notepad for the meeting and the agenda for the meeting and all of that kind of stuff, the reading material for that meeting and that sort of thing, and the MeetEcho link for that meeting. Okay. More on the IESG. I told you they have this call every 2 weeks called the telechat. And what the entirety of that meeting is processing all the documents that are queued up for that week, that by week, and discussing is there anything the IESG needs to discuss. Now, it used to be that every document was talked about for a while by the IESG, and that has now gotten streamlined. Everybody's expected to have read it. Everybody's expected to have sent out their comments by email. And we only discuss a particular document if there's a reason the IESG needs to have an extended conversation about it. Otherwise, it's pretty boring, which is a good thing, boring in a good way. And then at the end, there may be some management items that the IESG needs to deal with. And that's what a telechat involves. Telechats used to be closed. They're now open. They've been open for quite a few years now. Anybody can dial into the telechats and see, as we say, how the sausage is made. Again, it's interesting to do it once. It may be interesting to do it if your document is on the agenda for that telechat. But it is kind of boring. It's routine. I shouldn't say boring, it's routine. Right. You might want to talk to ADs during the meeting. Don't be put off if they're really busy, because they are really busy. I used to say when I was an area director that I had to put bathroom breaks on my calendar or I didn't get them. So it's quite hectic for the area directors. But most of them are happy to talk to you if they can find the time and if you can catch them. And more, the area directors are holding office hours where they say the routing area directors will be sitting in this room for an hour and a half at this time of day. Come talk to us. Take advantage of that. It doesn't hurt to meet them and get to know them. When I first started in the IETF, the area directors were gods up on Mount Olympus. And then after I was doing this for a while, they became people I knew and no longer up on Mount Olympus. And as I did it for longer, they became my friends who were now area directors. And that's cool. And we're hoping that Ron becomes an area director soon.
I will add that the area director office hours are listed on the agenda. So if you are interested in talking to a particular area, look on the agenda to see if they are holding office hours this week.
And you'll also find area directors milling around in the hackathon, milling around this afternoon in the Newcomers Quick Connections, and after that, the welcome reception. The new participant social hour on Thursday will have some area directors there, and you can recognize area directors by their yellow dot on their name tag. So, and IAB members, if you care about that, will have a red dot. And I have a blue one because I'm chairing a couple of working groups. So, all right, when we are finished with this whole process, we now have RFCs. And an RFC, it originally stands for request for comments. They are no longer requests for comments. The requests for comments came way before that. They're now finished documents, but RFC is a brand, so we keep it. An RFC can be on standards track, which means that it starts at a proposed standard and might at some point become what we call an internet standard. There's less and less of a thrust to do that. The original idea was that a proposed standard was a little more raw and wasn't quite ready to be said that it's fully baked. And when we thought it was fully baked, we upgraded it to what then was called draft standard and then internet standard. These days, we say the internet runs on proposed standard. The standards, standard's not a good word for that. The criteria for approving a proposed standard have gotten tighter and tighter, such that proposed standards are pretty well baked as they are most of the time. So that's the standards track. I'm going to skip one. There's best current practice, and that's generally either a process-related document, this is how we do things in the IETF, or it's something that is not technical enough to be a standard, but describes how to use the standard or that sort of thing, how we do something on the technical side. And that has the same ranking, as it were, of standards track. They're both considered standards. Informational is not at that level. Informational is just, this is not a standard, this is just giving you information that's useful to you. It may describe, there are some standards have so many documents that are parts of them that areas have decided to give you a roadmap. If you're trying to figure out how IP works or how BCP works, BGP works, or how DNS works, there's a document that says, here's a roadmap of how you piece these documents together. That sort of thing will be informational. Some working groups like to do a problem statement document. This is the problem we're trying to solve, and here's the process we want to go through to solve it. That would be an informational document. And experimental is where we say, we have an idea. It's not baked enough to be proposed standard, but we'd like to try it out for a while and see if it does what we think it does and whether it needs changes, and that might be published as experimental. There is the thing that some people will say to you, that anything with an RFC, the world considers to be a standard, and that's a little bit of a problem. We've had people proposing solutions to that, of giving things that are not standards a different name other than RFC. That's never taken root. People are not enamored of that idea. So, how do you bring new work into the IETF? We start at the internet layer and work up, internet routing, transport, applications, with security and operations interleaved. So we don't do the stuff that IEEE does, for instance, of hardware and that sort of thing. Make sure that what you are looking for is covered by what the IETF does. We do software protocols that get into routers, that get into applications and that sort of thing. So start making sure that that you think the IETF is the right place for this. Then there are ways of asking the IETF if they think if the rest of the participants think so. Is this something that a small group of people need, or is this more broader applicability? Is this something that the industry as a whole will use? The more broadly this is likely to be implemented, the more the IETF will be interested in working on it. Are there already things that do this or something similar? Can this be recast as a tweak to an existing protocol? Those are all questions you need to ask yourselves. Why is this? What is the advantage of this idea over what's already out there? And then the other bit is that we have the IRTF, the Internet Research Task Force, that looks at more advanced, more future stuff, what might be coming along. Is this ready for engineering? Is this ready for being a standard now? Or is this more something that we need to look at and see whether a future standard would be appropriate? So, but again, it's all judgment. There's a lot of exceptions. When I mentioned dispatch working groups and area working groups. That's where you can go to see if the rest of the IETF thinks your idea is suitable for the IETF. A typical thing in a dispatch working group will be you present You have your draft has been published. You present a summary of what your draft does and talk about the technology. And then people will get up on the microphone and sometimes have quite a long line asking you questions, making comments and saying, well, I think this work belongs in working group X, or, I think this work belongs in a different organization. The IETF shouldn't work on this. Maybe W3C should, or maybe IEEE should, whatever. So that's where they recommend to the area directors what path should be taken for processing this idea, where it can go anywhere from form a working group to ask the person to take it somewhere else. So this is no shortcut for doing the work. You've got to write the idea up as an internet draft. As I said at the beginning of this, talk to other people. Don't just write it up and throw it over the wall. Talk to other people, get people to collaborate with you on it. But ultimately, it's going to be published as a working group draft. That's where people are going to go to read what you have to say and read what your idea is. Understand what the note well says, right? There's certain intellectual property concerns that need to be followed. Make sure that you've met those concerns, that you've met those requirements. You are required to disclose if something you propose has a patent pending on it, or a patent issued on it, or that sort of thing. So be sure you've followed that, and I'm not qualified to give you details on that. There are RFCs that will do that. And then you have to decide what you want. You might want an experimental result. You might want it just to be informational, or you might be looking for a standard that can be built upon by other standards. So aim properly, and when you present that to wherever you're bringing it, make sure you're clear about that. So here we go. This is the summary of everything I've just said. Area dispatch group, get a community of interested participants before you start with this. One that I didn't mention is it's useful to ask the area director that might be responsible. If your document's in the routing area, find a routing area director and discuss starting up a non-working group mailing list. So there's a central place to discuss this. Very common. Nobody thinks, I hit the wrong thing. Nobody thinks anything of creating these things. They're easy, and they give a good place to have the discussions. You can have birds of a feather sessions, which are more formal meetings at an IETF meeting that are not working group sessions, but they are on the agenda. They're there to discuss a particular topic, and you can either propose a new working group or just present a technology that you want to discuss in the IETF. Ask an AD about that. For things that are not very complicated and not very controversial, you might even just get an area director to sponsor your document outside of the working group process. That happens also. Ask the area directors about that. Sometimes the output of a dispatch request says an AD should just sponsor this. And then there's this thing called the independent stream. It's way back in the day, there was someone called John Postel who just decided to publish stuff. That has in recent years become what's called the independent stream. And we have a special volunteer from the community, Elliot Lear is the current one, called the independent stream editor. And they can also publish anything at their discretion that doesn't conflict with IETF work. So, how can you be successful as opposed to falling on your face? As I said, start by writing up an internet draft. Really start by getting other people to think that your idea is worth proceeding with, and then work with them to publish it as an internet draft. Make a short presentation you could give in a working group session. Short is really an operative thing here. I've seen presentations that go on for 45 minutes and you lose people on that. Try to keep it brief. Get them interested. Don't get them bored or don't get them upset. Socialize your idea. Talk to more people than just your collaborators. There's a session now at the end of the welcome reception, the last half of the welcome reception, called the Hot RFC talks. You have like 5 minutes to just present your idea. There's no questions and answers. It's just throw it out there. I'm entertaining comments. Find me during the week. We're having a side meeting about this, whatever it is, and get other people to be interested in it. If you ask for time on a working group session's agenda, realize that the agendas may be very busy. So make sure that your presentation is tight and make sure that your work is ready to present to them. And realize that people, even if they sound rough, they're trying to work with you on this. We are not always socially sensible. Let's put it that way. People are volunteering to do this. They want to work with you. Try to work with them. Okay. How did I do?
Did very well. I do want to add something to Barry just said about if you have an idea, you're not quite ready to write it down. There are 2 points during the week where the IAB has a new work help desk. There's a time on Monday around 11:30 and then Thursday around 4 o'clock. And I will be sending a message to the new participant mailing list with these days and time. But there's a desk that's just outside in the hallway here where some IAB members will be there. If you want to talk about a new idea and you're not sure where to start, it's an opportunity to talk to some of the leadership and they can give you a little bit of advice. So you can keep that in mind.
Okay. Shu Li Wen.
Hi, thank you very much, Barry, for the presentation. It's very clear and informative. So this is Liven from ETH Zurich, and I want to ask a question that in case that multiple individual drafts were submitted around the same time, then what would the working group typically do? Like, will it encourage authors to collaborate or like they will treat them as competing drafts? Thank you.
Excellent question. Yeah, that might also need to be stuck on the slide somewhere. That happens a lot. We often have either multiple competing ideas coming in at the same time, or somebody presents an idea and others say, oh, well, I have alternatives, and they come in after. Either way. Depends on what the technology is, what the working group is doing at the time, but the two most common things to happen with that is either they are asked to merge their ideas into one draft, or the working group is asked to pick which direction to take, depending on exactly what the angle is and whether they can be merged or whether they are independent paths. Occasionally, it may make sense for the working group to adopt two different paths to the same end. That happens occasionally, but less often.
Okay, so it's like a case by case.
It's up to the working group chairs to determine the right path based on input from the working group. And something that I can stress on that is that the chairs do not decide things. The chairs exercise judgment to figure out what the working group has decided.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. It makes sense. Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Others? Yes.
Hi, Barry. This is Chao. Nice to meet you. My question is, per your experience, how does it usually take from an internet draft to the final standard? Oh, sorry. Yeah, My question is, how does a prior experience, how does it usually take to turn an internet draft into a well-formed RFC or standard? Yeah.
How long does it take?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. How long does it take to go from an internet draft to an RFC? As I said, we've had some that we've been able to do in 2 or 3 months. We've had some that take less than a year, and we had some that take multiple years. It depends on the urgency. Things that are more important to get done quickly may just get done quickly because that's what has to happen. Sometimes it's just a complicated technology that takes a long time. And sometimes, as I said, it takes a long time because the people involved just don't do things quickly. And so a lot of that is that the people who are interested in moving the document forward, if they're very responsive and update the document and keep the discussion going, that will shorten the time. So it's very variable. There's certainly a built-in minimum of 2 to 4 months, that it's not going to be quicker than that. But it does not have to be much longer than that if it's a simple idea. So.
I have a second. So based on that, which part consume the most time? Is the consensus Richmond part is the longest, takes the longest time?
Yes. The longest time is definitely the part between getting the working group to adopt it and getting it out of the working group with working group consensus. And as I said, you can make that happen more quickly by being responsive and updating the document and keeping the discussion going. But sometimes working groups just take a long time to hash out all the differences and have the discussion. So.
Next, we have Benjamin in the queue.
Hi, I'm Ben Curtis. If we are working with another standards organization, such as IEEE in this case, is there any special processes that are required as far as coming into with the operational standard that we'd like to create with IETF around that?
Working with other standards organizations can be simple or complicated depending on the issue and the organization. We have formal liaison relationships with some other standards organizations. It's not always necessary to invoke those relationships. The best thing to do is when you have participants who participate on both sides, you just work together, you agree on what makes sense, and there it is. But sometimes there needs to be a formal liaison statement sent over to the other organization to say, we're doing this, we're taking this path, we want to let you know, or we have a question for you, or we need your cooperation on a particular thing. There are some things that happen where work has to happen on both sides at the same time. And, so there's the liaison relationships can help coordinate that. The common participants can help coordinate that. So we get that a lot, both between IETF and IEEE and between IETF and W3C. Those are two very common ones where that happens.
Next, we have Braun.
I put myself in the queue for something else, but this liaison question was something that I think needs to be answered more specifically as well. Once you bring an idea to the IETF and it is adopted by a working group, you no longer own it. The IETF has changed control. The working group has the right to take it in a completely different direction, and you have a say, same as everybody else, but you don't own the idea, you don't own the document anymore. The IETF owns the document. So in the case where it needs to interoperate with something else, the IETF certainly takes that into account. The IETF might also decide we don't want to do anything in this space, or we want to do something completely different, and the other organization's going to have to negotiate with us about it. At the end, an IETF document has to be adopted and useful to the rest of the world, or it's just a meaningless number in a data tracker. So obviously the IETF cares about making things work with other areas. And that came to the answer to the other question that Barry gave about how long does something take and what are the roadblocks. A lot of it is persuading other people that your idea has merit, will work, will be adopted by the rest of the world. No working group wants to generate documents that don't go anywhere and that sit in the data tracker unused and unloved. And so the thing that slows things down is people not believing that your idea has traction. And so coming with evidence that there's interest in this in the outside world and that it will get adopted is valuable. Coming with persuasive evidence that you understand what you're doing and that your technical ideas are sound has a lot of value. And just socializing your idea around, getting the rest of the IETF to understand what it is, why it's necessary, will mean people are less likely to bring up objections and questions later, particularly once it comes out of the working group and goes to the rest of the IETF last call. Everybody in the IETF can see the document at any time, but particularly there's a mailing list where your document will go and people can look at it and go, hang on, why are they doing that? And if your idea hasn't already been socialized, you might get stuck in a whole section of discussions around why should it be done this way? And particularly if it's a controversial topic. There's a document I've been following in the email space that has been delayed for a long time over whether it must or may or should require TLS only or require implementations not to support TLS, because it's a controversial topic and because there's a lot of history and a lot of people know things in that area. And so there's been a lot of debate. You can look ahead to these things, socialize your idea, and things will move more smoothly if you get people on board. So that's important. There's work to do there, and it's real work. And that's why we're here, to meet people so that when it comes time to do that work, they believe in you and they know you.
Okay, we're almost done with the session. We have 3 more people in the queue, though. Jingshu Ma. I'm sorry if I said that incorrectly.
Okay, and just quickly, bringing things to the hackathon is a good way to show that there is some interest in implementing your idea.
Hi, Barry. I'm Sishu from University of Edinburgh. My question is, I wonder if one proposal got rejected at first, and could we pitch it again later? I mean, is it definitely not interested from IETF people at all, or if we make more progress on that work and make that design better, can we try again in the future?
You certainly can. It depends on what the idea is, what the working group's response to it was, whether they've sort of allowed room for, well, improve your idea or clarify it or whatever, and bring it back, or whether they just say, no, this is completely out of scope for our working group. You've got to listen to the responses. There's no one answer to that.
Next, we have Christian. Christian, are you remote? Okay, we'll go ahead to Huai Duan.
This is Huai Duan from Hong Kong University, Guangzhou. So just a quick question. I might have missed something from the presentation, sorry. So I didn't, fully focus. But from understanding the process of IETF internet draft and RFC, right, is a continuous process, right? But how about for the, submission? Is it also continuous on rolling, on the rolling basis, or there's some, sort of cutoff time, right? Maybe before each IETF meeting that you have to submit, and because I heard this from someone else, but I'm just not sure. Get some confirmation, more information.
In general, so individual drafts can be submitted anytime. Once a draft has been accepted by the working group and a -00 has been published, you can submit updates at any time. And you're sort of expected to, when there's some significant new content or a significant shift in the content to reflect consensus of the discussion, it's a good idea to publish that. But there is a blackout period right before the IETF meeting. So a couple of weeks before the IETF meeting, it used to be that we liked having this period where no drafts were submitted, so people who were traveling could read ahead and be prepared. There's also, if your working group is using GitHub, some people won't care so much about the drafts cycle because they'll be reading things through GitHub. It's still a good idea to publish drafts periodically to level set everybody that this is a point in time cut.
Okay, last call for Christian.
Hi, Christian. I'm still a bit uncomfortable if you have a draft in an area which the working group doesn't exist anymore or is inactive, and yeah, how to push this, and especially if things are already implemented but need an update. And
so that's where the dispatch or area working groups are your friend. You bring this to an area-wide discussion. Sometimes the working group that used to exist on this topic, their mailing list is still active and you can post there and have some discussion there. And then the dispatch group will decide, well, maybe we need a new working group. Maybe we can reopen the old working group. Maybe we need to have some, maybe this is a simple idea that the area director can just sponsor. But we have frequently reopened working groups to take new work after they've been closed for years. So it happens.
okay.
Thank you. Fabulous questions. Thank you, Barry, for a fabulous session, very informative. We are going to go right into our next session, which is a very short session. As Braun and Barry mentioned, sometimes a good place to take an idea is the hackathon. And we have Benno here that's going to do a quick introduction to the hackathon. And so I'm going to pull up those slides and we'll get started right away on that. And then just following this very short session, we're going to have lunch, and lunch will be just right outside of this room. So just give us 1 minute to change over the slides and we'll get started.
All right, excellent. Thanks.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and just get started on session 4 here about the hackathon. Again, it's a very short session, and then we'll have a long break for lunch. So I give you Benno.
Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, I'll try to keep it within 15 minutes, maybe shorter even. So my name is Benno Overeinder. We'll give you a short introduction into the IETF hackathon. Right, I can skip this for now. The hackathon, it's organized by 3 of us. You just saw Barry Leiba. Together with Charles and myself, we're organizing the IETF hackathon every IETF meeting, the weekend before the IETF starts. And of course, with great help of the IETF Secretariat, because important part of the IETF hackathon is, of course, food and drinks, and these are all provided and arranged for by the Secretariat. Good. Yeah, you can read the CVs, the biographies later on the slides. I won't go into details here. The note well, I can skip, I think. Yes. It's important, the note well, you heard about it probably. And also for the IETF hackathon, the note well applies actually. But what's the running code part of the IETF hackathon? I think Barry Leiba already introduced the IETF standards process. An important part is, well, kind of the one-liner we use is, we believe in consensus, rough consensus, and running code. And this is all about the running code. So it's important, so the running code is important if you have to have high quality standards. and standards are being used, make them relevant. Only used protocols, used standards are relevant. Running code is very important. The quality, yeah, with standardization, a specification of a standard, and you wrote it, I can read it and write code, and someone else writes code and it can interpret, then the specification is clear and not ambiguous. If I have questions, it doesn't work, I have to go back to the author and they have to refine the specification because it's not a good specification. People interpret it differently. So that's about the quality, but about the relevance, you want to have protocols being implemented and used in equipment. By having code, maybe proof of concept code or reference code, people use that different names, prototype code, that can all be used by manufacturers or production code developers to test their implementations, or they can be inspired and can help the development of production code that can be really used by you and me in, well, in our laptops, in servers, in routers, etc. So that's the importance of running code in the whole IETF standardization process. And, oh yeah, I guess the second bullet, some of the working groups are very strict. They want to have 2 implementations for interoperability tests. Other working groups are more relaxed. And for some drafts, it's not relevant. So it's not always the case that every draft needs running code. And that's interesting. The internet drafts will also have sometimes an implementation status. So reviewers can read, okay, have there been implementations? How does it behave? The implementation section are quite often co-authored by the implementers, so they give feedback to the draft authors to see what the state. So during the IETF review, people can see this is a good specification, has been implemented, etc., etc. So this is about running code in the IETF. There's also here another contribution of you is sometimes developing tools, not only for the drafts and for the standards, but also tools like data tracker. So there's also an initiative. Every Saturday there's a code sprint. You and I can contribute to the tools the IETF is using. But this is not about the hackathon. This is the code sprint, is a different initiative. You can contribute also to. Good, the hackathon. The hackathon is 2 days. Saturday and Sunday. And well, yeah, one of the number of things I already mentioned, what is the goal? So the goal is, of course, to make progress on drafts to become a standard, an RFC. And an excellent opportunity is the IETF hackathon, is to work together with the writers of the drafts maybe, and then the implementers side by side, and they start working on an implementation to test the interoperability, ambiguity, do I understand this text correctly? Maybe you can change some of the text. So this is a very good part of the IETF hackathon. And the other thing is also the IETF wants to attract new people, young people. And that's an excellent way. So young developers, they can also become standards developers. So if you have this IETF hackathon, we combine these 2 talent groups and, well, as you mentioned, get them exposed and interested in the IETF. So the next generation IETF engineers, well, will grow in that respect. So this is it's a nice combination of different aims, and we're pretty successful. It's very. I'll go to the next slide. We're pretty successful over the past 15 years. Charles started with the IETF hackathon. It grew from a small group of maybe 15 people to 300 on average, sometimes even 400 people. It's pretty popular, and it's a great way to start the week, the whole IETF week. It's not only about maybe talking about writing documents, it's also discussing ideas. So maybe before you start to draft, you can also go to the IETF, exchange ideas, talk about it, flesh out some ideas, and maybe submit that to a working group. So you see all kind of different activities during the IETF hackathon weekend. And the other good thing is it's free to participate. So it's a very low barrier to entry. So you don't have to pay a registry fee. You pay the registry fee for the IETF the full week. But if you only attend the IETF hackathon, it's free. So it's good for students. They can join without any costs, have dinner, have food, lunch, and have fun and work with the other people in the IETF community to make drafts or to help with a draft or to make reference implementations. Typically, we have 40 to 50 projects. This time we have around almost 60 projects. And that's a challenge because at the end of the hackathon weekend, we do a presentation for all the projects. So we have only 2 hours for all these projects. Giving 60 projects, it's only 2 minutes, and not counting switching between the slide sets. So that's a challenge for me, for us as organizer, but also for the people participating because they have to pitch their ID, pitch their project in only 2 minutes. So it's fun to see. But the good thing is on Monday we have the hack demo of happy hour, and all the participants can present their project to the full IETF community for an hour, so they can discuss it much more depth. So if you are still around here on, I guess you're around for the full week, on Monday evening around 6 and 7, between 6 and 7, please go to the level 2 foyer, and there's the presentation of a number of the hackathon projects, and the participants are happy to discuss their ideas with you. Yeah, typically projects are published on a hackathon wiki. So describing who's in lead, we call it the champion of the project. That's the contact person, can help you. Projects are open to everyone. And the champion can help you to introduce in the topic, connect you with one of the other participants, introduce you to the literature, etc., etc. So, and sometimes we mark projects with a star as easy to enter, easy for first-timers. And it works very well. So this is typically a project. So the champions, the project info, you can have all kinds of links to the drafts, to code repositories, etc. So this kind of project wiki is really helpful for people to figure out where they want to, well, first to attract people for your project, or for people that are interested to contribute to look, okay, this is really a topic. I'm really enthusiastic about that. I want to contribute there. Nowadays, we see also that similar project is being worked on over different IETF. So we are also thinking to introduce project wiki pages for these larger projects. They're consistent, they have a goal, and they work over a number of IETF to achieve that goal. So that's very effective, and we do hear a lot of positive feedback on that. All right, so I can. So this is a typical. These are some pictures from the hackathon. We have a whiteboard because there's 300 people. How do I figure out who is sitting where? So we use all technology, a whiteboard, with all the tables and an indication which project is on which table. So you can walk over to the table and you talk with the people you want to talk. In the middle of the picture, typically we have kind of, how do you call this? Well, kind of A3 posters where people is working on, so it can already explain a little bit what they're working on. Easy to find. And at the right bottom, also for you, these are the presentations at 2 o'clock this afternoon. So everybody has this 2 minutes to pitch their project. It's also possible to do remote participation. So we have tools like GatherTown. It's a platform for people to join remotely, to have discussions, share ideas. We have sometimes hybrid setups. So some of the people are in the room, some people are remotely working. And that works all very fine. Yeah, any questions actually? So this concludes my presentation. I hope to see you next time in the IETF hackathon room. And if you see myself, let's see, or Charles or Barry, you just met him. If you have any questions, please tap me on the shoulder, ask questions, how you can, yeah? All right. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, you can explain it better.
Just to add on to what Benno said, on the wiki, often the organizers of the project will indicate if it's a good project that's welcome to everybody and new participants, something that if you want to go to the hackathon and you're not quite sure where to contribute or what to work on, the wiki will have information of whether it's a good project for maybe a new participant or anybody can work on.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, indeed.
And all of the follow-up events that Benno mentioned, the presentations and the hack demo happy hour, I'll be mentioning those in the emails that go to the new participant list. So if you're unable to go to the new participant dinner, which I think was sold out at this point, hack demo happy hour is happening around the same time. So that's a good place to go and check out and see what people accomplished at the hackathon, get some ideas of what it could be like at the next IETF.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's again, it's a great way to start the week, but also to introduce yourself to others and vice versa. So you start learning people, working and maybe collaborating in the next years on drafts. Yeah.
Any questions about the hackathon for Benno? Are we ready to eat and get re-energized and maybe warm up a little bit? We acknowledge it got a little cold in here, so I can actually feel it getting a little warmer. Okay, well, thank you, Benno.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so this concludes the morning portion of the new participant program. There is going to be lunch just outside the doors here, and you're welcome to bring the food and eat inside this room if you'd like. But we have a fairly long break, over an hour, to do whatever you need to do and have some lunch. And then we'll meet back here for the afternoon sessions at 2 o'clock. All right, and I'll be up here for a couple minutes if you have any questions. Thank you, everybody.